welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today we're going to be breaking down Bellator 298. It is this card has 17 fights on it. One sec, let's adjust this microphone a little bit more. Hopefully that sounds better. 17 fights. It took forever. It took forever to tape this thing, man. It took so long. And I really try to dig in. I try to find as much tape as I can. Not all of it's on Tape Index. Sometimes you got to do the legwork. I do my best not to leave any holes. And, I have other things going on in my life. So it took 3 days to get through this card. And finally, I can break it down for you guys. Luckily, the fights aren't until tomorrow. So hopefully, I can still help you guys find some good spots. Most of the plays that I have are still available. Not all, but I'll go over them as we keep going. Let me actually just pull up my Bet MMA page. If you guys ever want like a guaranteed first glance at my bets, Bet MMA is the way to go. I try to go to Twitter right away afterwards. Sometimes I don't. If you want them literally the instant I track them, betmma.tips, the Couch Warrior. That's where you're going to find me. All right, bets are up, and we can get started. So for this first fight here, all right, we're going to have a few fights where there's only so much I could say, right? I can't really talk too much when people are making their pro debuts or when there's no tape or anything like that, right? So for these next two, we're going to spend almost no time. We got Michael Blockhus versus Ellie Mefford. Mefford's 0-4-0. He's 45 years old. Last fight about a year ago. On the other side, you got Blockhus. He's a wrestler. Bellator loves their wrestlers. They're American wrestlers. They bring them in. They throw a random dude in there who's 0-4-0, 45 years old, and they let them have a good debut. Doesn't always work out. We saw Isaiah Hoke get knocked out. We saw, I don't remember the dude's name, but he also was like a big prospect and then got finished by a dude who was not all that. Blockhus, he's at Killcliff. It's good. Wrestler for Minnesota, 3 times NCAA qualifier, placed 8th in his last time out. Very good wrestling from what I can see. But he's making his MMA debut. I don't know what his striking looks like. He trains at Killcliff, so I imagine it's good. I don't know if he has a submission game, if he trains jiu-jitsu at all. I mean, clearly he's going to run through this guy. I doubt anything's going to happen too crazy from this Eli Mefford. Doesn't seem very promising. And the line, minus 1,200 on Blockhus. What can you do with that? And then, you want to play with props, right? Blockhus ITD is minus 650. You can't play that. His knockout is minus 150, and his submission is plus 200. See, I lean the submission because we don't know. We don't know what their hands look like, and we don't know if they're like subs. But from my experience, most of these wrestlers, they come in here and they're better at the submission game. Not always the case. Not always. Sullivan, Cauley, not the highest level wrestler. He did wrestle. He only has knockouts, so you never know. It really depends on the person, and we can't just guess here. So we're gonna move on. Really, not much we can do with that fight. It's a squash match. All right, next up, we've got another squash match, Jordan Oliver versus Andrew Triolo. Oliver's 33, don't have much of his measurables other than he's 5'6", also out of Killcliff. Triolo 0-1-0. When was that fight? It was a year ago. He's 5'8", so he's going to be 2 inches taller, but I'm not really sure what he has going for him. I mean, his last fight, he lost it in under 3 minutes by tapping to strikes. And on the other side, we got Oliver, who... this dude is a credentialed wrestler. He's good, man. 4-time NCAA qualifier, 2-time champion, 1-time second place, 1-time fourth place, 4-time Big 12 conference champion, silver 3 times in the U.S. Open championships, gold once, 2020 U.S. Olympic team qualifier / member. The dude is legit. If you couldn't tell, he's going to smoke this guy. But again, what can we possibly do here? We can't do anything. Minus 1,200. You got no value there. Minus 1,500 now. Let me see. By KO, minus 150. By sub, plus 150. Again, we have no idea. It could be that they're coming out of this Sanford MMA, Killcliff, great camp for striking, and their striking's great. But we don't know. They might come out here and just do what they do and then get a submission. So we're going to have to wait and see. Unfortunately, we can't do anything there, although I am hyped to see Oliver try it out in MMA. Moving along. Next up, we've got Jerrell Hodge versus Marcirley Alves. This is one of the better fights on the card, even though these are relatively unknown guys. Like if you ask most people, even if they watch Bellator, so they're not a straight up casual, they probably won't know who these two are. Hodge 10-3-0. He is 33 years old, 5'7", and let me check what I got for his camp. I don't have anything, so we're gonna go with Ares Combat Sports Academy. For Alves, he's 11-3-0. He's going to be 9 years younger at 24, 3 inches shorter, which I'm not so sure about. He doesn't seem that short in any of his heights. 67-inch reach, shoot box for him. You know, when the odds first came out and I saw it, I was like, okay, I need to tape it, but I'm probably more than likely going to be on Hodge, right? And, you know, you can't go wrong going either way here, to be honest. Like at Pick'em, you bet where you think there's the value, right? You bet which guy you think shouldn't be 50%, he should be higher, right? So the more I taped it, the more I felt that while Hodge is live with his wrestling, he's a fantastic wrestler, and his boxing is pretty solid too. He's a very well-rounded fighter, good jiu-jitsu, good everything. I don't know how he's going to handle the pressure from a guy like Alves. I don't know how he's going to handle the pressure and then the striking and then the output. What I really like about Alves is that he won't stop moving forward. He's going to keep coming and coming and coming, and he'll take some shots, but doesn't really get knocked out. Let me check if he's ever been knocked out. He has not. He's got 8 knockout wins of his own, and I can see why. It's not even because just of his power. He does have power, but it's that pressure. He breaks opponents, and his opponents aren't bad. Yeah, we're talking Brazilian regionals, but a lot of those dudes are actually pretty good. And we've seen that with those guys making debuts, you know, in the UFC. So we've seen that they're pretty good. On the Hodge side, like I said, I like his striking quite a bit. Nice combinations, good jab, nice front kicks, leg kicks, goes to the body well. Both of them go to the body really nice. Going to be fun to watch. His wrestling is very good. He's very strong on top. And that's what it's going to come down to for me. Can Alves defend the takedowns? Can he keep it up on the feet? I think that he can. Now, that one loss that he's got on his record, that's to Luan Lacerda. We know him. He's in the UFC now. And he was winning. He was winning that fight. And Lacerda wasn't able to get takedowns. The way it ended up on the floor, I don't even remember fully, but it was a scramble. It wasn't a takedown. So Alves isn't really getting taken down. He's shown pretty good takedown defense on the regionals. I do think he's going to get taken down a few times here. I just don't think he's going to get held down too much. I think he's super live. I played him as an underdog at plus 110. I felt that he should not be the underdog. He should either be a pick'em or slight favorite. So I felt that there was some value there. Now he's minus 105. You know, you got to assess it for yourself. I think it's still a decent spot, but you do have to realize he does have 2 sub losses. Hodge does have a great ground game. And if you look at the guys who Hodge is losing to, other than his debut, Kakramanov and Tony Gravely. So not bad competition. But the main thing on my notes that I have up is that Hodge doesn't deal with pressure too well. That's when we see him kind of fade. That's when we see him not do as well. And Alves won't stop. Alves is absolute pressure all the time. So for me, it's Marcirley Alves. That's the pick, and I've got an underdog shot on him as well. And we're going to move on. All right. Next up, we've got Josh Hill versus Kasum Kasumov. Hill, he's 22-5-0, 36 years old, 5'6" with a 66.5-inch reach. And for his camp, we're going with House of Champions MMA. Kasumov, he is 14-1-0, 29 years old, 5'8" with we don't have his reach, training out of Akhmat Fight Club. So look, Kasumov is minus 260 favorite, and I get it. I think the second people see like an Ov in Bellator, they just immediately go for them, and all the Russian dudes are favorites on this card, if I'm not mistaken. So I get it. His wrestling is very good. He looks Habib-esque in how he fights. He's getting these takedowns. The takedown entries I don't love. I actually think he could do better to set them up and enter with better timing. But he's got really strong top control. Once he's got these guys down, he's tough to deal with. 9 submission wins. But he doesn't fight often. Last fought a year ago. And Hill, he's been fighting more often. Now, the Bell fight was a horrible look. A lot of people felt Bell won. Cass Bell is not a good fighter. And the fact that fight went the way it did, that wasn't a good look. But other than that, he's been looking pretty good. He's very well-rounded, is Hill. He is a pretty good striker. I have him down as beaten potatoes, but that's not a bad thing. if your meat and potatoes, your basics are really good, you're going to be a really good fighter more than likely. So I think that Hill strikes meat and potatoes, but in a good way. Everything is there, everything he needs. It's just not fancy, doesn't do anything too spectacular that stands out. That's all that means to me. And his wrestling is also pretty good. He's a good wrestler himself. And his takedown defense has been very good so far. So, not so far. I mean, the guy's had an extensive career, and his takedown defense has indeed been good. I do think Kasumov wins, but I don't think this is worth betting at minus 260. He's a bit of an unknown product. We don't know exactly what he's going to look like. And I think that Hill is a live dog. I don't want to bet on him at this age, at 36, at bantamweight. That's where we're at, right? Bantamweight, I don't love that. And he's definitely seems to be kind of on a decline. So I want to stay off of it. I think Kasumov edges it, probably with his grappling. Not probably, more than likely with his grappling. But it's going to be a rough fight for him. I don't think it's going to be too easy. We'll see. He might make me look stupid running there and sub Josh Hill, but I don't want to put minus 260 on an unknown product. But I will say that he is my pick. We'll move right along. All right. Next up, we've got Leandro Higo versus Nikita Mikhailov. Higo, 21-6-0, 34 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. He's training under the Pitbull brothers. Mikhailov, 10-2-0, 24 years old. He's 10 years younger, 5'8". They're the same height, same reach. And he trains out of Alexander Nevsky. A lot of these Russians do. I believe that's the Fedor camp, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so in terms of this matchup, I lean Mikhailov because we've seen that Higo can be out-wrestled, right? The Darian Caldwell fight, the Sabatello fight, right? Now, Mikhailov, is he as high of a level as both of those guys? Maybe not credentials-wise, but I think that he is a really good wrestler. And we saw even in the Caldwell fight, he was able to get takedowns. He was able to scramble. His scrambling ability is very good. But he did get outworked by Barzola as well. Barzola completely out-grappled him. And that Barzola fight showed me actually a prop that I'm going to be talking about in a bit. So breaking them down piece by piece, Higo, he's a good striker. He's fought great competition coming out of a great camp. And his takedown defense is pretty good. The better wrestlers are taking him down, and pretty often. He can scramble really well, right? I'll be talking about that a little more in a second. He's really good on the ground. 12 submission wins, only been subbed once himself. He scrambles really well, able to get up, able to throw up subs. But my problem is he's only really easy to hold down in the beginning. I mean, hard to hold down in the beginning. It gets easier, and then eventually he just accepts guard, and he'll just lay there on his back and kind of just accept position, maybe look for something. And I don't love that. That's why I do lean Mikhailov to win. I like his striking just as much as he goes, if not more. I think his striking actually looks really crisp. And he's only 24, so he's going to be getting better and better and better, right? He's a bit hittable. Caldwell landed some nasty shots on him, and Higo can land. He's a good striker. We'll have to see. But I do lean Mikhailov in the striking, and again, I lean him in the offensive wrestling. So I think he's going to win. But I'm interested in the submission prop for Higo. That's what I want to play. At plus 900, I think that line is incredibly off. And if you watch the Barzola fight, you can see that Mikhailov, I'm not positive whether he comes from a Sambo background. I assume that he does based off of his camp and just from what I've seen. But he almost got subbed by Barzola like 3 times. You know, Barzola had his back in the third. He had a nasty Darce, and I think it was in the second. And I think there was one other sub attempt that I'm not remembering. But those were close. And if Higo had either of those, probably finishes, you know. So I like Mikhailov as the pick. I'm going to pass on any money lines, and I will be playing that sub prop as soon as they open the market back up for it on Bet Online. And we can move right along. All right. Next up, we've got Alfie Davis versus Aalon Cruz. Davis, 15-4-1, 31 years old, 5'11" with a 70-inch reach. Training out of London Shoot Fighters. Aalon Cruz, 11-4-0. He's 2 years older at 33. 1 inch taller, and he's going to have almost an 8-inch reach advantage. Let me double check their camps. For Cruz, it seems like he's training at a small gym. Davis, he's over at London Shoot Fighters. Look, I like Davis here, and I like him quite a bit. He's minus 145 now, which honestly I was about to play. So I won't sit here and tell you guys it's not playable. I got him at minus 115, so I do have a better line. But you look at these guys, and, Aalon Cruz looked pretty good against Bobby King. But Bobby King, he's not amazing. He's nothing special. He's a good, decent gatekeeper, but that's about it. And he was able to out-grapple him. What we see from Cruz is he's this big, rangy guy, and he has nice front kicks, but I don't think his striking is very good. And he doesn't really use that range as much as he should, to be completely honest. What we do see from him is a bunch of kicks, and then he'll go for these takedowns. And because of his long limbs, he's able to get them a lot. So his wrestling is pretty solid. But the thing is, Davis is a great wrestler too. He has solid wrestling, and he has good takedown defense. So I don't really see Cruz dominating him on the ground. And if he can't, I like Davis's striking better as well. I think his striking is very good. I think his output is great. I really like the elbows and the kicks. I believe it was him who had a broken hand in the Theobald Guti fight, and he still won. So that was impressive. Yeah, I like Davis quite a bit. I think some of the reason people might be on Cruz is the Tim Wild fight, because it was a draw. But, run back Tim Wild's recent fights. The dude's on a run, and he's beating pretty good guys. So can't hate on him just because he looks like he shouldn't be good, or just because he's older. He's clearly still a good fighter. And to go to a draw with him, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I have a feeling that Tim Wild would beat Cruz. So my pick is going to be Alfie Davis, and we'll move on to the next fight. Sorry for all the coughing. I think I've caught something. Been coughing a little bit. But we'll move on now to this next fight. We've got Sullivan Cauley versus Hamza Salim. Cauley, 5-1-0, 27 years old, 6'3" with a 74.5-inch reach. Hamza Salim, 7-6-0. He's 6'1". He's 2 inches shorter, 2-inch reach disadvantage. So look, I mean, this is clearly Cauley. It's a minus 900 for a reason, but I wouldn't go too crazy on it, to be honest. Like, look, so yeah, he's fighting crap competition, Salim, right? Adlan Benson, he wins. Gets knocked out by this guy, Saeed Marzali, on BFL, which is a terrible Canadian promotion. Beats an 18-48-0 guy. Lost to Wes Schultz in a fight where, Wes Schultz actually started to fade a bit, and Hamza Salim looked a little bit better. Like, Schultz was able to take him down at first, but then once Wes Schultz tired out, those takedowns came a lot harder. He still got them, but they came out a lot harder. But Schultz was also on short notice, so maybe not that relevant. Cauley, he hasn't really been tested, right? He's never been out of round one in 6 fights. We don't know if he's getting these takedowns, right? But he doesn't put away Salim in the first. Is he going to tire out like Wes Schultz? We don't know. And Salim's striking, it's all right. It's serviceable. He can get the job done. But I'm not. I don't think he can do this. I'm just trying to give you guys both sides. I think more than likely Cauley knocks him out in the first. Most likely outcome. I did fade Cauley in his last fight. I'm very, very proud of that. I think I had 2 to 3 units on Luke Trainer, who was like +3 something. And I was really proud of myself there. I mean, Luke Trainer showed up. And it just shows you that recency bias is very, very much a thing in MMA. People were low on Trainer because he lost to somebody that they didn't think was great. And look what happened. So always got to be careful. But in this fight, I think Cauley gets that first round knockout. Is it playable? Let me check. Minus 210 on the knockout. There's no round props. Nah, I would stay away, guys. He's now minus 1200. I would stay away. And we'll move on. Next up, we've got Dayana Silva versus Ekaterina Shakalova, fellow Ukrainian. Silva, 10-8-0. She's 32 years old, 5'7" with a 68.5-inch reach. Shakalova, 7-1-0. She's 7 years younger at 25, 5 inches shorter with a 6-inch reach disadvantage. Look, this is a tough one. And I feel like Dayana Silva as a dog is probably the side. Like, I think this is a dog or pass fight, right? So you look at Shakalova, And she's 5'2", fighting at bantamweight. That's small, man. And size matters. She does have good wrestling. She's got a nice double leg, good grappling wrestling, 4 submission wins. From what I've seen, she's very solid on the ground. She gets those takedowns, not doing it against anybody very good, to be completely honest. Yulia Kutsenko, 6-7-0. Sandora, 5-0. Badurek, 8-6-0. You guys get the point, right? She's not really fighting the best competition. She's much smaller, and her striking is only decent, in my opinion. I don't think her striking is all that good. I think she's got good power, but that's really all I'm seeing. On Silva's side, right, I don't love the striking, but I do love the output and the pressure. She does wing a lot of her strikes, and Shakalova does throw a bit more straight. Maybe she'll land the better shots, but Silva can wrestle too, right? And she got out-wrestled by McCourt and still had good takedown defense there. But McCourt is bigger than her, right? McCourt is a big lady, and so is Silva. I don't know that Shakalova is going to have an easy time taking her down. In fact, I think it might be very hard. And if she can't get it, is she going to be able to hang on the feet here? I'm not sold that she will. So for me, this couldn't be a clearer stay away. Like, I was tempted by Silva as the underdog, but at the same time, she isn't the best fighter. I don't see her getting her own takedowns, really. And her striking, again, I like the output. I don't like the technique. It makes her very hittable. So I can't play her as a dog. I don't even know who to pick, to be completely honest with you guys. I want to pick the younger lady who seems to be very strong and be very solid. But at the same time, I feel like Silva might just outwork her and get that upset. So I guess I'll pick Shakalova, but I think you guys should all pass on this one. I don't think it's worth betting. It just too many unknowns with how Shakalova at bantamweight with a 5'2" height is going to work out, right? So that's a pass, and we're going to move on to our next one. All right. Next up, we've got Vladimir Tokov versus Jairo Pacheco. Jairo Pacheco. Tokov, 8-2-0. He's 27 years old. 5'10" with a 73-inch reach, training out of Alexander Nevsky as well. Pacheco, 7-1-0. He's 25. He's 2 years younger. 6 feet tall. He's 2 inches taller. And he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage at 76-inch reach. So, you know, when I first taped this, I was very tempted on Pacheco because he's good. He's pretty good. He's got good striking. I like the striking a lot. Nice jab, nice kicks to the body, nice combinations, goes to the body really nice. And I think that he might be the better striker at range here, but I say might because I'm not convinced. Tokov is a very solid striker too, just nothing crazy, you know. He's just solid. So I guess I'll give Pacheco the striking edge, but only by a little bit. And the reason I couldn't get to him is you look at Moda, right? And that was the first time he had to step up ever. Everyone else he fought wasn't very good. Gets a big step up against Moda and gets completely out-grappled. The thing is, Tokov has the wrestling. He's a really good wrestler. And I know that Gonzalez defended his takedowns, but Gonzalez is also a really good wrestler with fantastic takedown defense and scrambling ability. So that wasn't too shocking that Gonzalez defended. Overall, Tokov's wrestling is really good. His offensive wrestling is probably better than Moda, but Moda has better jiu-jitsu, and that might have helped him in a lot of positions there, keeping Pacheco down and keeping that control. Will it be any different against Tokov? I can't tell you. I don't think so, really. I think that Tokov will be able to control him. I think on the feet, again, it's close, and when I have a matchup where on the feet it's close, but on the ground there's a big difference, I'm going to go with the guy with the big difference on the ground. So give me Tokov. He is minus 330 last I checked, which is very, very chalky, but it's probably not even accurate. You know, he could probably be a bigger favorite. So I put him in a parlay with someone we'll talk about later in the co-main, but other than that, you can't really do too much here. I can't blame anyone for the Pacheco shot, but you're hoping and praying that Tokov won't be able to hold him down like Moda did, right? So give me Tokov, but other than that parlay, I'm not doing anything with it. feel like he probably wins by decision too. What's that prop? That could be interesting. Tokov by decision, -110. I don't hate that. I don't really see Tokov finishing him, to be completely honest with you guys. Let me check real quick. I want to see. I don't remember off the top of my head how many finishes Tokov even has. Yeah, most of his wins are by decision. It's, well, not most. It's actually a half split. 2 KOs, 2 subs, and 4 decisions. So that's 4 fights ending ITD, 4 fights going to the decision. But who are the guys he's finishing? Lance Gibson Jr. That was a pretty good knockout. But Gibson Jr., untested prospect, finished Felipe Maya in 2018 on the China Regional. Maya's now 15-8-0. And he finished Evgeny Shakun, who was 1-4-0 at the time and is now 1-14-0. So I actually might play that decision prop. I actually like it quite a bit. I'm going to pull out my handy dandy postcards, post-it notes. Love these. And we're going to write it down because I actually think I'm going to get there. Tokov decision. I like it. My one concern, I guess, would be maybe like ground and pound, but I don't think that's going to happen. I actually think he's going to win by decision. And fight goes is -160, over 2.5 is -200. So looks like the books expect it to go. And I don't really see how Pacheco wins this decision. So give me Tokov by decision. That's going to be a prop I'm going to add to my slate more than likely. And we're going to move on. All right. Next up, we've got Dayana Avsaragova versus Justine Kish. Avsaragova, she's 6-0 undefeated, 25 years old, 5'7" with a 65.5-inch reach. Kish, 8-6-0, 35 years old, 5'5" with a 2-inch height disadvantage, 1-inch reach disadvantage at 64.5 inches of reach. For me, this is a dog or pass spot, right? So Kish, she's losing to women like Deanna Bennett, right? And what did Deanna Bennett do? She out-wrestled her. She lost to Tracy Cortez by split in a fight where she actually knocked down Cortez and had a pretty good performance. And Cortez is a really good wrestler, right? The thing with Avsaragova is you would think she's a great wrestler because that's kind of where our minds go with these Russians, right? We just assume that they have the Sambo experience, so they got good wrestling. But she doesn't do it, right? She doesn't do it in Bellator at all, really. And not even against the women who aren't so good, like freaking, what's her face? Kira Batara and Gabriela Golfin. Like, she's not really wrestling too much. And in the regional, she did a while back, but we can't take that much from it, right? If she's not wrestling, she's not wrestling. So if that's the case, right, and she's not wrestling Kish, it's in her best interest to do so. If she does that and mixes it in with her striking, which is very solid, she could win this fight. But at the same time, her striking's good, but it's not setting her apart too much. I do like the combinations. I like how she mixes the kicks into them. But it's not putting her completely apart from her opponents where it's a clear win. I mean, when it's a bad opponent, yeah. But against the better competition, it's not necessarily the case. The Lara fight was pretty close. So, and the other thing, right? Avsaragova before Lara, she fought Kira Batara, who is 4'11". And that's when I realized Avsaragova is hittable. She's very hittable. And the fact that a 4'11" woman was landing on her with a terrible record, by the way, not a good look. Kish can fight. She can throw hands. She can outstrike someone. She beat Leigh McFarlane, former Bellator champion, and she was able to use her striking there. I think that she's going to outstrike Avsaragova on the feet, personally. I think her output's really solid. And just the fact that Avsaragova is so hittable, I have to think that Kish is going to have a lot of success. So for me, I'm going to pick Kish. I don't know if I'm going to bet her. I'm going to need the price to get a little wider because she is coming in here 4-1 in her last 5 against a woman who is young. She's 25. She's already shown really good things. And she's going to keep improving. But if Kish hits like +160, +165, I'm probably going to have to get involved, and I'm going to put a half unit on it if it gets there. So give me Kish in this fight. I'm going to pick the underdog to get the upset. We're moving on. Here we've got Enrique Barzola versus Jalon Bates. Barzola, 19-7-2, 34 years old, 5'7" with the 70-inch reach. AKA for him, as far as I know. Bates on the other side, 7-0, 26 years old. He's 8 years younger. He's 3 inches taller, and he's got a 3.5-inch reach advantage. This is an interesting fight, only because Bates is a very good prospect. That Lugo fight, he showed up, and he was a big underdog there, pulled it off. His striking is good. He's got nice kicks. He really uses that length well. He's got very solid wrestling of his own. And 4 submission wins. He's slick on the ground. Never knocked anyone out. His ground game is his thing. But for a guy who leans on the wrestling and the ground game, Barzola is a nightmare. He's an absolute nightmare. And we've seen it in his fights, right? The Caldwell fight, the Mikhailov fight, even in moments in the Magomedov and Archuleta fights, and in the Perez fight, right? He's non-stop. His pressure is ridiculous. He just will not stop, and he'll break you. He breaks almost everybody, and he might be one of the best counter wrestlers I've ever seen. And I say that I don't say it's like his takedown defense only, because it's everything he does, right? The takedown defense, the way he pressures so they can't get their takedowns, the way he can reverse, the way he can get his own takedowns. He's just a fantastic counter wrestler. He's like, if you're putting up a wrestler and you want someone who's a tough matchup and might beat him, Barzola is your guy. And I don't think that Bates is going to be able to beat him. I stayed away because I'm interested to see how Bates is improving. He is very young still at 26, and he is going to be a lot bigger. So I'm curious at how that's going to affect the fight. And I didn't really want to get there. But look, Barzola is the better striker for sure. His output is better for sure. His wrestling offensively, I think, is better. And like I said, his takedown defense is some of the best out there. And just overall, the scrambling, the get-ups, he's fantastic. So I have to think that Barzola is going to win this one. I wanted to play him. I really did. But now that he's minus 240, I can't get there. I can't get to the dog either, because I do think Barzola wins. So for me, it's a favorite or pass. But I'm going to pass. I do think Barzola wins. I'll have him in my lotto ticket parlay. But that's really it. We can look at the props to see what we got there. Barzola by decision is plus 115, which is decent. He should win if it's a decision. What's his ITD, though? Plus 250. If we had late props, I would hop on that for sure. Because like a round 3 finish is super live here, I think. But we don't have it, so I'm going to probably stay off. But I do like Barzola to win this fight. I just think he's a nightmare matchup for most wrestlers in the bantamweight division. And we can move right along. All right. Enjoying a little drink on a Friday. So next up, we've got Lucas Brennan versus Weber Almeida. Brennan, 8-0, undefeated, 23 years old, 5'10" with the 71-inch reach. And I believe he still trains under his father. Almeida, 7-1-0. He's 35. He's going to be 8 years younger here. No. Wow, my math is bad. He's going to be 12 years. I meant older, but 12 years older, not 8. He's 3 inches shorter, and he's got a 1-inch reach advantage, right? So Lucas Brennan is a huge favorite for a reason, right? He's a really good wrestler, really good jiu-jitsu, 6 submission wins, slick transitions, really nice back take. And what has been Almeida's kryptonite? Wrestling, right? In the Johnny Sato fight, we saw Sato pretty much dominate him for 2 rounds on the ground, able to get his wrestling going, able to take the back. And then Brennan bodied him, completely out-grappled him. So clearly, Brennan is the better wrestler, and he's going to have a huge edge here. At the same time, I'm really tempted on Almeida. I'm really tempted on him. So Brennan has never been out of round one. He's been out of it one time in 8 fights. He did go to a decision. But he hasn't fought good competition. And Almeida is definitely his best opponent to date, by far, in my opinion. And on the feet, I don't like what I see from Brennan. I don't think he's a very good striker. He's okay. He's super young, 23, still developing. He was a grappler, so he's learning his striking. He's getting better. But he's fighting a guy whose striking is his thing. And I don't love karate-style fighters. It's not my favorite style for MMA. I think for most people, it doesn't work well. For Lyoto Machida, and who I believe Almeida trains under, and Wonder Boy, it works. But for most, I find that it's not very effective. His striking is really solid. I really like his striking. But my big problem with Almeida is he throws a ton of kicks, but the output with the hands is pretty ass. It's not very good. And it would really help if he threw his hands more, because when he does, it's super clean. The 1-2s are crisp. The strikes that are straight are super crisp. And if he's mixing up the striking, if he can keep this on the feet, he's super live too. So I'm taking a strong, close look. And I'm going to write it down for myself not to forget. Keep a list of these things. Almeida, money line. I think I'm going to end up getting there. I'm just waiting to see just how wide the line gets. Money's still coming in on Brennan at minus 525. Come back on Almeida's plus 400. Let's do some implied probability, yeah? So at minus 5, what was that? Minus 520? Yeah. At minus 525, that gives Brennan an implied probability of winning at 84%. That's a lot. That's about 8. If they fought 10 times, he would win 8, right? I don't know. I mean, he could come in here and end up looking like a huge favorite, like he is because of the grappling. But I just think Almeida is going to be a pretty tough test. So I don't know that he wins 8 times out of 10. I would have put it more so at like 7, 6.5 times out of 10, something like that, right? I don't know about almost 8.5 times out of 10. So the one play I have made so far, and I actually like it quite a bit. I played the over 1.5. I got it at plus 110, and I put a unit on it. And currently it's at minus 115, which I still think that you could play. I think that's fine. So I get it, right? Brennan, 8 fights, only out of round one time. So you would think that this is probably going to end early. And Almeida, also a lot of his fights ended early when he was fighting less good competition. Hasn't really been the case lately. But it really just comes down to, is Brennan going to be able to sub him in the first? I don't know about all that. A fresh, dry Almeida, I don't know that you're going to have a ton of success in the first. I really don't know. So for me, the over really makes sense. I think that Brennan will get the takedowns. I do think he's going to do work. I just don't think he's going to lock in the sub that early. I just don't think he's going to get it. And then I need Almeida to survive for another 2.5 minutes, which I'm fairly confident he can do. So I really like that over. I really do. Whether I get to Almeida, we'll have to see. If the line keeps going, I'm going to have to get there, because the striking is night or day. And so is the grappling, right? I was talking about earlier where if there's a matchup where one of the aspects is close but not the other one, I'm going to lean that way, right? But here, it's wide for both sides, right? The grappling, wide difference, huge edge for Brennan. The striking, wide difference, huge advantage for Almeida. So for me, I think it's pretty crazy to parlay Brennan. I think your best bet, if you don't want to pick a side, do what I did, play the over. And then, watch out for my Twitter at Couch Warrior Pod. If I make the bet, I'll make it and I'll post it for Weber Almeida. The more I look and the more I think, the more I want to play it. So I'm going to wait a little more. I just want to see what happens with the line. And then I'll probably make my move, only for like a quarter unit. I'm going to keep it small because there's a very clear edge here, very clear path for Brennan, right? But I just think Almeida is very live. I don't know why my nose is like so red over here. Weird, but not sure why. But we can move on. I'm going to pick Brennan to win, but I think the value is on Almeida. And I think the most value is on that over. I think it's a great play. But we'll move on to the next one. Sydney Outlaw versus Islam Mamedov. Outlaw 16-5-0, 31 years old, 5'9" at the 76-inch reach. I believe he's at Sanford MMA. Killcliff. Mamedov 22-2-1. He's 3 years older, 3 inches taller, and he's at a 3-inch reach disadvantage. So I played Mamedov relatively early. I played him at minus 205. He's now minus 220, and it's going the other way. If you like Mamedov, you like my breakdown once I'm done with it. I think 220 is still doable, still playable, but it looks like you might get a better price, so maybe wait a little bit because money's coming in on Outlaw. The way I see it, Outlaw is a really good wrestler, right? That's his thing, is being able to out-wrestle people and being able to outwork them, and often he submits them. He's got 8 submission wins, but look, submitting Miles Fury doesn't tell me much compared to a guy like Mamedov, right? And then you watch the Piccolotti Outlaw fight, and you see that while Outlaw was winning, clearly, and he was able to win most grappling situations, he did get his back taken. If I'm not mistaken, he did. And Piccolotti was able to out-scramble him several times, not just once, several times. Eventually, Outlaw did still end up on top, out-scrambled back, and got on top. But the fact that Piccolotti was able to get success, Mamedov is a different level of wrestling. We're talking about a really, really, really good wrestler with a really good ground game, 10 submission wins. And, his striking is pretty good too. His striking is solid, nothing special, but good combinations, good striking. And Outlaw, his striking is serviceable, good jab, nice body shots. But I'm going to lean Mamedov in the striking, and I'm going to lean Mamedov in the wrestling as well. I think that if Outlaw does somehow take him down, I think he's just going to out-scramble him and end up on top anyways. So I think Mamedov's he should pick this up. He's very live to win. And I mean, he's a favorite for a reason. The one thing I wanted to mention, I know many will disagree with me, but first of all, I thought he beat Benson Henderson. And second of all, what Benson did was grossed me out. It was despicable. I thought it was disgusting. So the fight ends, and then he pulls in his entire damn family, puts his daughter on his shoulders, and starts parading around the octagon like the decision's already been read. That's what fighters do after they won already. That's after the decision has been read. They bring in their family and they have a party. To do that before the judges' scorecards are done, and I'm pretty sure he was at home too. He had the home field advantage, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, what judge is going to give it to the other guy? Nobody. Nobody's going to watch that and be like, this guy lost. I'm going to say this guy lost. Dude pulled in his family and paraded them around like he'd already won. He knew what he was doing. Don't give me anything like, oh, you just celebrate. No. He knew exactly what he was doing. He could have waited literally a minute, gotten the decision, and then partied. He did what he did. What happened. I just thought that was pretty... Didn't like that. But we'll move on. Mamedov's aside for me. I think he wins this pretty clean. Next up, we've got... Ooh, this is a good one. We got James Gallagher versus James Gonzalez. Battle of the James. Gallagher 11-2-0. He's 26, 5'8" with the 67-inch reach. Believe he's still at SBG Ireland. Gonzalez 10-6-0. He's going to be, 7 years older at 33. He's going to be 1 inch taller and have a 2-inch reach advantage. He is training out of Longo Weidman, which I love. And man, I think this guy's way better than his record shows. He's fighting really tough competition. Larion Douglas is a decent guy. He just lost in LFA, though. That was a good win. The Caracappa loss was rough. Beat Cody Law. That was impressive. I mean, this dude Singh Ruhil in the PFL Challenger Series, it was pretty clear that Gonzalez was going to smoke him, and smoke him he did. And then the last fight was Aaron Pico, right? I had Pico ITD, and man, this Gonzalez fella, he does not go away, right? Dude's tough as nails, super tough. So that's something I like a lot here. But on the Gallagher side, Gallagher has been very, very inactive. And I also want to pull something up real quick just to have it. Yes, it's still there, which is crazy. I'll talk about this in a sec. So what do I want to say? Yeah, I wanted to talk about this. Patchy Mix, that fight was 1 year and 8 months ago, right? He lost that. There was a lot of hype behind that fight. They had some beef. So it was a hyped up fight, but he lost that stuff fair and square. Beat Cal Eleanor 2 years and 9 months ago. Cal Eleanor is not that good, guys. He's not that good. And look how long ago that was. 3 years and 10 months, almost 4 years, Roman Salazar. So most of his fights were a long time ago, and he doesn't fight often. I don't know exactly why he's been out, but it's not a great look. And he is coming up to 145, not his home. He's fought at 135. I don't know if he's ever fought at 145, not sure. But, it could have his upsides. He could look bigger, stronger, for sure. But he can also be slower, might not have the same power as the other guys. We're going to have to wait and see, right? I'm not sure why the line flipped, to be completely honest. I guess people think that Gallagher coming up, more hyped. They think maybe I don't know. I don't know what they think, because I feel like Gonzalez has him covered. So mostly covered. Don't get me wrong, mostly covered. So in terms of the striking, I give it to Gonzalez. I like his striking. I like how he goes to the body, and I like his jab, right? For Gallagher, I think it's good. Good leg kicks, but nothing too special. When he throws straight, it looks good. But other than that, not a huge fan. Both guys wrestle. Both guys have good wrestling, right? And both guys are live to get takedowns. I honestly can't tell you who's more likely to get it. I personally think that Gonzalez is, and I think his takedown defense is stronger than that of Gallagher, but we're going to have to wait and see to really figure that out. Because I think he's a better wrestler, and because I think he's the better striker, and because I think he's tough as damn nails, I have to go with Gonzalez. And I played him at minus 110. You guys could get an even better line now. He's current. Oh, actually, no. The line went right back. It's now minus 115. Look, I played it there, just about there. I think you can still play that. I think it's fine. If you have Bet Rivers minus 103, good. DraftKings has plus 105. I think that's great. Underdog odds, if you have those, fantastic. But the one prop that did stand out to me, and I think this is the way Gallagher wins, and I'm shocked. I'm really shocked that the odds are the way they are for this. So Gallagher has what? He's got 13 fights. 9 of those are by submission. 9 wins by sub. He's got a great figure 4 and slick back take, right? And while Gonzalez has never been submitted, he hasn't really fought any crazy sub threats, to be honest. And my big concern with him, it's in my notes, is when he shoots for takedowns, he'll kind of leave his head out there, and it looks almost perfect. It looks almost perfect for a guillotine. So I have some concerns that he's going to have to fight out of a lot of subs as a guy who has backed Gonzalez already. But if you're on the Gallagher side, I think you should take advantage of that. I think you should be playing 8 plus 850 by submission. That just seems off. I don't think that's correct. So I think Gonzalez wins. I think he wins by decision. I think he outworks Gallagher and survives any sub attempts. But I think that it's a big possibility that can happen. And if you're on Gallagher, I think it's most likely path of victory. And nobody's touching it. There's no money coming in on it. And I honestly can't believe it. I'm pretty close to playing it myself and then using it as a kind of hedge. But I don't really want to mess around with the ROI. I don't know. Probably just going to leave it with my money line bet on Gonzalez. But if you do want to hedge out a little bit, you want a little bit back. If Gonzalez doesn't pull through, I would go with the sub on Gallagher because I can't believe it. I really can't believe that it's plus 850. But we'll move right along. It's a great fight. We've got Dalton Rasta, 8-0, undefeated, 27 years old. Oh, wait. Sorry. We've got Dalton Rasta versus Aaron Jeffrey. Dalton Rasta, 8-0, undefeated. He's 27 years old, 6 feet tall with a 74-inch reach. Jeffrey on the other side, he's 13-4-0, 30 years old, 6'2". He's 2 inches taller, 1 inch reach disadvantage. He's over at Sanford MMA. Rasta is over at American Top Team, 2 super gyms going at it. Look, I get why people hit Jeffrey and why they love him so much here as the underdog at plus 185, plus 190, I think I saw. Plus 190. And I get it. I do. He's a really solid striker. He knocked out Austin Vanderford, who's a good wrestler. But the thing is, right, we didn't really see him get tested so much against Vanderford because he knocked him out quick, And then when he fought Salter, he got out grappled, and there was nothing he could do about it. That said, Salter is different, right? He's different from Rasta. It's a different kind of control. It's more using jiu-jitsu, right? Rasta doesn't have jiu-jitsu. He zero submission wins. It's not really something he goes for. He knocks guys out, or he'll out-grapple them to a decision. 4 knockouts, 4 decisions. So the way I see this playing out is this is one of those spots I've been saying now a few times on this podcast, on this recording, where the gap on the feet, I think, isn't as wide as the gap on the ground. I think that Dalton Rasta is a really good wrestler. He's extremely powerful, physical, athletic. I mean, just look at the Tapology picture. Let me point at this over here. Look at it. I mean, just look at him. Ripped. But do I want to bet him here? I don't know. I don't know that I want to. Jeffrey is a tough test. For me, it's favorite or pass, but I don't really want to bet the favorite here, so I'm going to pass. On the feet, I see Jeffrey probably outstriking him. Probably. But Dalton Rasta's no joke. He's not bad. He's not bad on the ground. So, I mean, on the feet. So I don't think Jeffrey just sparks him. I definitely don't think he knocks him out. If Rasta can't get him down, Jeffrey probably wins, right? He probably wins the decision, probably just outworks Rasta on the feet. But I don't know that he's going to be able to defend the takedown so easily here. I really don't. Maybe the first few, but the more often they come, the harder it's going to get. And I just think Rasta's going to out-grapple him. So I'm going to pick Rasta. I totally understand why people are on Jeffrey. I get it. I want it to be there. I like backing Jeffrey myself, but I just couldn't do it here. I think Rasta's got too clear of a path. And again, I think that the difference in the striking is not as wide as the difference on the ground. So give me Dalton Rasta in that fight. No bet. We'll move on. All right, we're up to our co-main event of the evening. We've got Valentin Moldavsky versus Steve Mowry. Moldavsky 11-3-0. He's 31 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. Another Alexander Nevsky guy. Mowry 10-0-1. He's 31. He's going to be the same age, 6'8". So he's 7 inches taller and 79-inch reach. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage. He's out of Sanford MMA as well. I was trying to think, who the hell is he even training with at Sanford? What heavyweights do they have there? And what heavyweights do they have there who are close to his size? I mean, nobody really. So I'm curious who he's training with exactly. But if anybody knows any Sanford MMA heavyweights, drop it in the comments because I'm genuinely curious. But in terms of this fight, so first off, it's a rematch, right? It's a rematch where in the first fight, it went all of 1 minute. I believe it was Moldavsky who fouled Mowry. I think it was a ball shot or an eye poke. I don't remember exactly. I was watching it last night. But to be honest, from the 1 minute I saw, it looked pretty clear who the better striker was. I think it was very clear. It was Moldavsky. And then you watch and I know after that, he lost to Lyndon Vassell. But the difference between Mowry and Vassell, first of all, he out-grappled Vassell early. And Vassell's no joke. If you've seen him fight, you know he's no joke. There's a reason he won and he's fighting for the title. The guy is one of the most, he's a physical specimen. He's like a Yoel Romero, where it's just it's hard to understand how he looks that way. And he's extremely strong and physical with his own good wrestling. And despite that, Moldavsky pretty easily got him down. Pretty easily. Both, I think it was 2 or 3 times. And then he got hurt. And then ground. I think it was ground and pound, right? Yeah. From Mount, he hurt him, took it to the ground, finished him there. Mowry doesn't have those weapons. Well, he's physical. He's a physical freak as well, made in a lab. He doesn't have the striking, or he hasn't shown the striking power either. At least to me, I'm not really seeing it. He's got 4 knockout wins. That's great and all, but you look at the competition that I was against, and then you realize it wasn't that great. He's got 6 submission wins. He's got a good wrestling background. He's a good wrestler, but I don't see that really working here. I don't see him getting takedowns, really. I think Moldavsky's got great takedown defense. I understand that he got taken down by Bader, but again, I also think he won that Bader fight. I think there's a little bit of home cooking there. That's my personal opinion. And I also think that Bader's a better wrestler than Mowry. Mowry, he's got the physicality going for him. Maybe that can add another layer to it, another dimension. But I don't think it's going to be enough. And if his wrestling's not enough, and what is he going to do? Is he going to outstrike Moldavsky? I really don't think so, guys. I really don't think so. Moldavsky, he's not just a wrestler. He's one of these guys who's very well-rounded, similar to Mikhailov and Tokov. Very well-rounded dude. He's clearly, he wrestles better. That's his main thing. But his striking's really solid, too. He's only got one knockout. I get it. But from what I see, I really like his work on the feet. And against a guy like Mowry, I love size edges. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, when you have someone so tall man's defense is very real, right? Very real. Look at Sam Patterson. Look at, here's a good example. When Josiane Nunes, right, in the UFC, she fought Zara Farn. I had Zara there. She was a bigger woman. Almost finished her in the first. But what did we see happen, right? Every time Nunes backed her up against the fence, that shin was right there to be hit. And it got hit a lot. And I think there's going to be a similar dynamic here where Mowry's big, and outrange, he might be a lot to handle. But once you back him up, you don't give him that range, that chin's going to be right there. The target's going to be clear. And I think Moldavsky's going to land on that target a lot. I think he's going to hurt Mowry a lot. And the problem with Mowry is, because I said this, I don't think he's going to be able to wrestle too much. He's not good enough of a striker to outstrike Moldavsky. He's just not. His strikes are very awkward. He's got nice front kicks and a good clinch game for sure. I love his clinch. I mean, when you're tall like that, obviously your clinch game is going to be strong. You got nice clinch knees that you can bring up all the way to the head easily. Great elbows, but particularly those knees. And that could be a weapon, right? That could be a weapon here that might help him. If Moldavsky's shooting, he can try to hit those knees. And maybe he will. You know, you can't count a guy out. And that's probably his best path, because I don't really see how he can win this otherwise. I don't think he can pull off a decision. I don't think he can knock him out, other than the clinch, I guess. And I don't really see him submitting him. So what can he really do here? I think Moldavsky wins. And, you know, most of his wins are by decision. I'm not playing any methods here, but I kind of think that the knockout is live because, like I said, that tall man's defense, and Mowry's just not a good striker. And then you look at the Mowry-Isaev fight. I believe that's his name, right? Isaev? Yeah, Ali Isaev. And that was a funky fight. I had Isaev, and I see this fight playing out similar, but without that round where Mowry got the 10-8. Because the thing with Isaev is, first off, his cardio was atrocious. He was a guy who did not fight very often at all, and whose game was pretty limited. His striking was all right. Not like Moldavsky's, definitely not as good. And his wrestling is great. Maybe at the same level of Moldavsky. Maybe Moldavsky's a little better. It's hard for me to know. But he didn't do much from top. That's not going to be the case with Moldavsky. He's going to work. He's going to ground and pound. He's going to be trying to mess this guy up. And I don't see that 10-8 happening. You know, against Isaev, Mowry lost the first round clearly, mostly with the being on bottom. And in the second round, he was able to get on top and just beat the crap out of this dude and 10-8'd him fair and square. That was a 10-8 clear as day. And then lost the third and got that draw. I was glad I had Isaev, so I got my money back. But, you know, that was greasy, and he could have won that. He kind of dropped the ball. I don't see him getting that success here. I think unless he lands a nice clinch knee. It has only been 5 months since that Linton Vassell knockout, so maybe it wouldn't be too crazy, but I think Moldavsky's the side here. I put a unit on him at minus 235, and I put another unit. I actually put 1.2 units on him parlayed with Tokov. That came out to minus 117, and I put 1.2 units on it to win just over 1. And I really like those spots. He's minus 255 now, minus 245 on DraftKings. If you want it, I would get in now, but not any later, because, you know, once it gets too crazy, do you really want to risk it? The odds aren't going to line up. The probability, I mean. Yeah, I would get in quick if you're going to do it. I really like it. I don't really see how he wins. I don't call things locks, and I don't put too much money on guys who are coming off of a knockout loss. But I think 2.2 unit stake here is fine. I think it's fine. I think he's very playable, and I think he should dominate. So give me Moldavsky, and we're going to move on to our main event. All right, so this is one of my favorite spots on the card, easily, and I'll talk about it in a sec. We've got Logan Storley versus Brennan Ward. Storley, 14-2-0, 30 years old, 5'9" with 71.5-inch reach. Another Sanford MMA kill cliff guy. Ward, 17-6-0. He's 35, 5'10" with a 1-inch height advantage. And same reach, pretty much, 71-inch reach. Don't know exactly where he trains. We're going to go with Whaling City Boxing and Jiu-Jitsu. So Ward is a weird fella, right? He's been out. He was out for 5 years and almost 6 years from now. And then he came back a year ago. So it was whatever, like 4 years in between that fight. And then when he came back against Brandon Bell, this tiny dude who actually was landing a lot on Ward, which is not a great look. Then the Cassius Kane knockout, that was clean. And the Saba Hamasi finish was very clean. He's a great striker. Honestly, he's a good striker. Nice jab, nice body shot. Really like the body shots. 12 knockout wins, right? He's pretty hittable. He's lost by knockout twice. I don't know that Storley's the one to do it, but I wouldn't be crazy shocked. And he's got good wrestling too. It's very solid. And his takedown defense is good, but he hasn't been tested against a wrestler like Storley. We don't know. Storley, in the first fight with Yaroslav Amosov, one of my favorite fighters, it was close. He was able to get a lot of wrestling success. Not so much in the rematch. Lost that one clear. It was a unanimous decision loss. But he's a really good wrestler. That's my point, is that Storley's a very, very good wrestler. And he probably will get takedowns here. But at the same time, I don't know how easy they're going to come, because Ward does have good wrestling too. At first, I was going to just square parlay Storley and Moldavsky, right? Too easy. Minus 330, Storley. Moldavsky minus 245. Parlay him. Screw it. No. Don't do that. I was watching it, and honestly, like, Storley's a good striker, but I kind of give the edge to Ward. And Storley's pretty damn hittable. So while I give Storley a strong wrestling edge, I kind of give the striking edge to Ward. And I think he's more live to hurt Storley here. And the way I bet this is I just went with the under 4.5. I think that's such a good spot. I got it at minus 120. It's minus 160 now, which, you know, I don't love as much. But first, Brennan Ward in, let's count this, in 23 fights. In 23 fights, Brennan Ward has been to a decision once. And that wasn't I don't think that was a 5-rounder. It could have been, because I'm pretty sure he was champion at one point back in the day. But let me check, because that would be good to know. So his only decision was against Harley Beekman in 2012. That wasn't even Bellator. That was CES 10. And that was not a 5-rounder. And then, yeah, in Bellator, it was almost all round 1, round 2, round 3 in 2017. He's not going the distance often. One time in 23 fights, right? And Storley's got finishes too. It's not like he's not a finisher. He's got 8 knockout wins in 16 fights. That's not bad. That's not bad. Half of his fights winning by knockout. So the way I see it going is I think it's either Ward finishing Storley early, or I think it's Storley finishing Ward late, because I have a hard time believing that Ward's cardio is ready for 5 rounds. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think he's going to be able to do it for 5 rounds. I think he's going to gas really, really hard after maybe the second or the third, and I think that's when Storley can get his own finish. So I'm not picking a side as the win, just as a pick. I mean, I'm not betting a side as a pick. I'll pick Storley, but I'm going to stay away from a side. I'm just playing that that under 4.5. I think it's a great spot, and that's all I'm going to do here. So thank you guys all for tuning in. That is 17 fights. Honestly, I'm surprised I did it within an hour. That's a lot. That's a lot of fights. But I'll run through my picks real quick, and then we'll get on out of here. So I've got my plays. We got Valentin Moldavsky minus 235, 1 unit. Then him parlayed with Tokov, another unit, 1.2 units. James Gonzalez minus 110, 1 unit. Islam Mamedov minus 205, 2.1 units. Alfie Davis minus 115, 1 unit. And then Marcirley Alves plus 110, 1 unit. Brennan Almeida over 1.5 plus 110 for 1 unit. And then Storley Ward under 4.5 minus 120 for 1 unit. And that's going to be it, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to watch my UFC breakdown earlier this week. Yesterday on Wiz Does' channel, we started a new show for Contender Series. Make sure to run that back. And then in about an hour, I'm about to do Prop Talk on Twitter Spaces. It's Thursday if you're watching this later. And that'll be at 6 p.m. Eastern time, literally in just about an hour. So thank you guys all for tuning in, watching this back. We're not live right now. So appreciate you all. Good luck with your bets and peace out.